Councilmember Kubash, I don't understand this right here. Y'all got $100-something million. What's happening, Harvey? What?
Well, actually, we got more than $100 million. The Red Cross collected $305 million. The governor's fund was $69 million. J.J. Watt saying he got $37 million. And then the city and the county together have received over $102 million. And I'm for the money going to the people. When that money was given, it was given by people around the world who watched and saw the devastation, and they expected us to put it in the hands of those who had the need.
That's right.
And they kept telling me, well, council member, we got to make sure the right people have the money. We don't want to give it to the greedy. I said, well, the greedy got it now.
Well, listen, wait a minute. I forgot my intro, y'all. This is Community Views and Solutions. I'm Charles X. White, your host. I've been reading this material, and y'all know we've been doing this series on Harvey. It's post-Harvey now. And today, the series is scholars, professionals, practitioners, and community. So we have some professional and a policymaker here, and he's screaming bloody murder. So today we have Captain, all around, everybody knows, Smokey Phillips from Constable Precinct 7, and Constable and Captain Phillips, he heads up our, when we do our field exercises in the community around hurricane season. We've done it for 14 years. Yeah. He's there with the high water vehicles, and he's going to talk to us today about some of the things he experienced with Harvey and just in general. And then we have the one and the only, I was going to call you Constable, but Councilman, Councilman Kubash. And we got a little taste of where he's going with his conversation. So let me just kind of ease into this discussion. We've been doing this series as an introduction. And it's an introduction to our symposiums that's going to happen in 2018. And we have a lineup of, at this point it appears, Prairie View's people, Sam Houston State, Rice, because you already heard a little bit from Professor Blackburn, who's an attorney, and I still haven't gotten my book, y'all. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Jim, I need a book, man. But anyway, and then we had Professor Burke and Professor Horney from Texas A&M Target Communities. Now, the objective of this series is to explore the most vulnerable. As we all saw with Harvey, that anybody can be rendered vulnerable, right, or in a disadvantaged situation beyond their circumstances. And Harvey certainly did that to a lot of people, rich and non-rich. But on a constant basis, we have here a zip code diagram that says that, and it identifies roughly 27 zip codes across the city that have been vulnerable, unmet needs, underserved, hard to serve, low performing, as they say, for over 60 years. And as we heard from the council member, the city has $102 million. It should be a dedicated fund, but the city of Houston doesn't have a history of handling dedicated funds like the Rainy Day Fund. The Rainy Day Fund, I want you to, if you can, give us an update on the Rainy Day Fund. Is the money still there?
You talking about in the state?
No, in not the Rainy Day Fund. It was the drainage fee.
Oh, the drainage fee.
Well, it was called Rebuild Houston.
Rebuild Houston's collected about $600-700 million.
Whoa, wait now. So when you add that, you're talking about almost $1 billion.
Well, when you add that along with the recent bonds that we just passed, $490 million, and remember this, not any of this money has actually gone to mitigate flooding in Houston. None of it that I can put my finger on and say we've built a reservoir, we've been able to mitigate flooding, and that's why people are so upset about all this.
Okay, so one of the things that I heard about that Rebuild Houston money is that it was a dedicated fund. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's supposed to be a dedicated fund, but it's commingled with 3 other funds.
And I heard that some of the money, right, not too long after it started, Mayor Parker started spending it. Was that correct?
Well, yes. I mean, the fund.
Not to what it was supposed to be for.
Well, we got a report, Charles, in council, and you might remember Councilmember Bradford and I spoke up about it.
Oh, yes.
That $33 million of that fund, when we had that report a couple of years ago, said that fund was being used to pay salaries.
Yeah.
And so how can you mitigate flooding? I don't mind paying salaries if the work is being done by those people to mitigate flooding. It's supposed to be a drainage fee. It's supposed to help us to reduce our flooding in Houston.
Constable Captain Phillips. Now you have a big precinct.
Right.
And tell us a little bit about your precinct and what do you see with just a rain flood and then take us to the hurricane flood?
Well, our precinct consists of 94.5 square miles in Houston, Harris County. The majority of our precinct sits in the city of Houston, and we have a small portion that actually sits in Harris County, in the unincorporated areas of Harris County. We have a total of population of about 525,000 people that actually live in our precinct, which covers the Midtown area, Sunnyside, South Park, Hiram-Clark, Southwest Houston.
Not Makawa.
Yeah, well, Macau is a splitting line between Precinct 7 and Precinct 2.
Okay.
That's the splitting line between, Precinct 7 and Precinct 6. It's a splitting line, Macau. So we travel north and south on Macau to the Beltway, and then, of course, we go down to the other adjacent county, Missouri County. So all along the Beltway is Harris County. All the way, our precinct comes from, if you look at Macau, you travel west on the Beltway, we go all the way to Bissonnet in 59, or Bissonnet and Beltway 8. So we have a pretty good area, not more as far as geographically, but more population with the 500,000+ people we actually live in our precinct.
What are the heaviest flooding areas in your district?
The most areas that experience the most flooding is probably the Sunnyside area, South Park area, and believe it or not, Third Ward. This is one of the most flooded areas.
Really?
Yes. Yes.
What do you do? Do you handle when 288 floods?
Well, when 288 floods, we kind of look at it and wait for it to go down. There's nothing that we can actually do because of the bayou there, and the bayou runs over, and the drainage is bad. And from 610, well, this time it was from Belford all the way to downtown was flooded out. You couldn't even see the freeway.
Well, Councilman Kubash, now what's that going down the center of 288? Isn't that a new rail system? Or?
Well, actually, from what I understand, is that TxDOT or Metro is building an HOV toll run.
Yeah,
tollway lane.
Toll. Is that going to improve the drainage?
Oh, I wouldn't think it would. I mean, how can it improve the drainage? When it floods, the water in there, I think, is 16 to 18 feet deep,
right.
Isn't it?
This past time, it reached all the way to, what's that, 18 feet for the next overpass?
Yeah, I mean, so there's no way that HOV lane is going to improve drainage. It may improve people getting to work on time. You know, for years, the prime place to want to live in the community was down around Pearland because that freeway was just so easy to get back and forth into town. Well, people figured that out, and they all moved down there, and now they can't get into town.
Well, let me ask you this. What we experienced on Martin Luther King with Metro is that when they put all that cement down, that increased the flooding capacity because it wasn't any green, the green space.
You took away the impervious surface.
Right.
Well, of course. I mean, you're going to put concrete down instead of having impervious surface where the water can actually soak into the ground. But that water there gets about 18 to 20 feet deep.
It's that high. I mean, I was surprised they would put a tollway down that freeway, but I understand you have more good days than you have more flooded days. So the flooded days last, what, a week, maybe 2 weeks at best on that freeway.
Out of 365 days.
365 days, so you look at the volume of people that travel from not only Pearland, Manville, down from Lake Charles,
Santa Fe.
Santa Fe. That tollway is going to start from, I understand, from Highway 6 all the way to OST in an off ramp from the behind the grocery supply
On Holcomb.
on Holcomb.
Okay, so let me ask this then. Are there talks between the state, the city, and the county about this in Metro?
Well, first of all, they don't. If they talk to, they don't talk to council. They may talk to the mayor, but I haven't seen anything talk to us about it. They just told us what they were going to do. We never got to vote on the HOV lane.
Didn't you and Councilmember Bradford introduce some possible legislation where city council members could impact the agenda?
Well, we were trying to make it where that if you had 3 council members and they signed a request, they could put something on the agenda. Now, right now, we can call a special meeting with 3 council members, but the fact is, the only time that's ever happened is when Bradford and myself and Brenda Stardig signed to have a special meeting, and it had to do with the firemen. And when we did that, we called a special meeting. We got a quorum. But the mayor at the time was Anise Parker. She fought that quorum. And then we got the quorum, and right when we were about to take a vote, 2 of the members walked out. We didn't have a quorum. We had to end the meeting. So Bradford had to conclude the meeting without a vote ever being taken.
So how do you see Houston preparing for the next big event, as whether it's terroristic or whether it's flooding, trees down? How do you see Houston?
Well, you already know that one of my big concerns is the people gave me a voice, a vote, and a seat at the table. My seat at the table doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the people that elected me. And they don't have a voice right now, Charles, when it comes to this money that was given. They don't have a voice unless it's my voice. I haven't heard anyone else get on TV like I have and push it at council to get the money released. And when people tell me, well, we're going to have this money released in 8 months, I said, that's 7.5 months too late. People are hurting. I've been out to their house. 48 hours followed me 3 days. They went everywhere I went for about 3 days, and they did a little video where we were going. They saw the devastation in Houston. We have to be concerned about the down and outers, people that don't have anything. If we would have taken that $102 million, I would have wanted to cut 100,000 checks for $1,000 each, and I would have wanted to give those checks out to people in the community. What would people have done had they got a $1,000 check? They would have bought maybe a mattress. They would have bought maybe a refrigerator. They'd have put a down payment on a car. What am I really saying? They would have spent it. They would have spent it all in a week or two. It would have been an economic boom for the city of Houston, but now it's over there on Woodway, or it's in a bank somewhere. We've only delegated $77.5 million the first go around. The second go around, they only passed out $28 billion, and which is $33 million. Now, when I went and talked to the Greater Houston Community Foundation, they put me in a boardroom. They had the president, the vice president, the chief financial officer. They were concerned, and they said, well, Mr. Kubosh, it's going to cost us $1.3 million to get rid of all, to disperse this fund. And I reached into my pocket like this, and I got my money out of my pocket. I said, throwed it on the table, and I said, how much did it cost me to just give you that? It don't cost money to give money away. We got to give. Look, there's people out there that are hurting. They're needing our help. They still are needing our help. It's been 90 days since the flood, and you know what? They're being forgotten. I talked to Commissioner Cagle. He said we finally dispersed the last Ike money through the Galveston Council, Houston Galveston Area Council.
Yeah.
And when he told me that, I said, my mama's been dead a year. She was a victim of that hurricane. She's been dead a year, and we finally give it out. There's something wrong with this, Charles. There's something wrong with what we're doing. There's a better way, I can assure you.
No doubt.
And I have to piggyback on Mr. Kubosh. I ride through the communities, and from Ike, I still see the blue tops the blue tarps
Yes.
on people's homes.
Yes.
And now we went through another hurricane, and I see more additional tarps now. And even in the areas in our precinct, say Leakwood area, close to Maryland area, where it's nicer homes than maybe in Sunnyside,
Right.
those areas are still below par. I mean, those folks still, I noticed trashed some of those areas still. I don't know if it's new construction coming in and re-putting stuff back out there, but the point is it's still there, and those people are still suffering. Now, from Maryland to South Park, Sunnyside, and Hiram Clark, these folks are still suffering, and where's the money at?
And we're coming to a rainy season.
And remember this, we don't control all the funds. You know, I said that there were a number of funds when I first came on. And that, if you add those funds up, just those funds, Charles, are $500 million when you add the Red Cross and all these other funds. But the only fund that I'm really addressing right now is the fund that's controlled by Harris County and the city of Houston.
The $102 million.
The $102 million. And we should have done something different. And I pushed it. I've spoke at council. I'm just not going to let it go.
Not only that, what you just said, some of that money could have been used or can be used in the mitigation process.
Well, I can't answer that. I think that because the money was given the way it was given, it's got to go to the victims of the storm. And I'm all for that. I wanted to go to the victims of the storm.
Now, you've heard this phrase, creative financing.
Oh, yes.
Okay, they put creative in anything they want to do. Creative public policy, it's creative. Now, you have people that have been victimized by Harvey, and they may need some trees cut down so it won't happen again. That's mitigating. You got to mitigate these risks, because if you're a victim now, just like the people in my land, right?
Right.
3 times, 3 years in a row, they flooded. Now, suppose that drainage money had been actually utilized to help the drainage system over there. Then that's mitigating for the next one, but it's addressing this one.
Right.
So we can still be creative in how because see, the cycle is preparedness, mitigation, recovery, response. You got the cycle. So anywhere in that cycle, you are addressing the need if you're in the cycle.
Charles, whenever the money got into the hands of the Greater Houston Partnership, the Greater Houston Community Foundation, they say they're distributing it to nonprofits who qualify. The nonprofits, they said, are going to take a piece of it for their administrative costs. That just seems wrong to me. That money should go right out to the victims. I'm telling you, the way we're doing it isn't helping the people who you and I both saw on TV, the people you helped save their lives. We should have been giving them that money. I've been in a lot of these homes that are devastated. They needed more than just bottles of water, cleaning supplies, and diapers. After a couple of weeks, you need more than that. You got to have money to do stuff. We should have put that money in their hands.
Well,
but then when you talk about that, you know, you look at our area. We have a large community called Brunswick Lakes, Brunswick Meadows. Is a large community. I mean, that community itself was flooded. It was flooded where people couldn't get in or out. And the issues that we came across were people who had issues as far as getting their diabetic treatments, people who had to see the doctor.
Dialysis.
Dialysis.
Yeah, that's serious.
I mean, all that
Real
stuff
serious.
was serious stuff. And it seemed like we were, and I like I said, I like to thank Commissioner Rodney Ellis, and came out with the dump trucks that was really, really helpful in getting those folks out those homes that's in those flooded areas.
well, I just don't understand why government, knowing that we went through Ike and Rita, Allison, and from Allison to now, basically, you all have been one of the most progressive groups, because when you got those high water vehicles, 7 years ago?
Right.
Okay. Well, when you got those, I don't think any other constable had those high water vehicles.
You had some that may have had them, but I don't know if they went in depth as far as the practices that we established between
okay.
our group, with our agency, and your group.
Yeah.
Those partnerships we established about planning, making plans on what we're going to do.
Now,
those practices and plannings.
What Captain Phillips is talking about, for about the last 14 or 15 years, we do community-led field exercises. We get into a command center with the civic club, with the folks in the neighborhood. Most people don't know this, but in 2002, Lee Brown, when he was the mayor, commissioned me to do a study. And we mailed out 120,000 surveys, English and Spanish, to 20-something zip codes from like Third Ward, Midtown, East. And the survey was identifying those who needed help, you know, with medicine, like you said, medically help, and those who wanted to help. They didn't want to be involved with the politics, none of that. But if they had a boat, they said they would help. If they had a chainsaw, they would help. Yeah. This is in 2002. This was before 211. So the data and the need has been there since Allison. But the actual implementation and partnership, and I would say this, I would say that the city really doesn't want a partnership. They want to control who gets what money, because the history of those that get the money is minimum. They do minimums. They don't show you a map of when they started 7 years ago, how many areas territorially, geographically, have they moved into with services that people went from here to there. It just amazes me. We stuck in a time zone, time period, time warp, whatever you want to call it, that from Allison to now, Houston is not ready. And Professor Blackburn said it like this. He said that the name shouldn't be the flood control district. He said, because you're not going to control water. He said, we need to learn how to live with water. And it should be a management, like a management district.
Flood management district.
Flood management district. And he talked about the reservoirs and all of that. And that's not being addressed. So, Councilmember, what do you see as how can we get the mayor to move a little further away from the status quo response to the innovative response?
Well, one of the things that I have said repeatedly at City Council is we may need more high water vehicles, but we really need duck boats. For those of you who don't know what a duck boat is, it's an amphibious boat. It looks basically like a bus without the top on it, you know, and it may have a cover over it, but you know, it'll seat about 30, 40 people. It drives down the road, and then when it goes into the water, it's got a prop, it's got controls, you know, with a rudder. And that way, we could, if we had 10 to 20 of those in the city during a hurricane, we could have them stored someplace, bring them out. They could go anywhere. They're not going to be limited. If you have a boat, you get to dry land, you're stuck. You can't go any further. You have to have a helicopter to get some of these people. A duck boat could get to them, pick them up, get them out.
And that made a good idea, because we had people from Kansas City, from Lake Charles, all came with all these boats. And once you get in some of these neighborhoods, the streets, you know, it may appear flooded, but it's probably maybe 2 inches of water like this, or maybe 2 feet of water. And the problem we were having was those larger boats would run on the concrete on the street. So we have to push them out the way, or push them back to their trailers to get them back loaded in order to get a flatbed boat.
Now, we don't hear about that from the mayor or from the county judge, but that's a very, very critical piece of information to give to the community. Go finish what you were saying.
Well, it was. I'm saying guys came with boats, which was it was the best thing that ever happened.
Right.
And I really owe those guys a big thank you. But some of those boats were too large to launch in some areas because, like I say, if the streets may appear to be flooded, but it's 2 feet. Now, if you start piling people on that boat, what happens?
It sinks.
It sinks down and down, and people they was getting stuck on the concrete streets. So when we had to get ropes and actually pull them out of there, then put the boats back on the trailers.
Unintended consequences.
Well, if you want to say it that way.
Well, you were doing everything you could do with what you had.
Correct.
But if we had duck boats,
that'd have been a good.
I mean, those are amphibious boats. They could go anywhere. It takes away from the need of having a helicopter because it's inclement weather anyway.
Right.
The helicopters are so minimal. They only deal with very few people. Whereas a duck boat, man, you could run into a neighborhood and pick up everybody in a whole block.
And granted, most of the equipment that we have from the actual boats, the 2 boats we had, and the actual high water trucks were donated to us by the military or through the military surplus. Now, it's coming on us to keep them running. Mm-hmm. So, it's a task itself to keep them running because we're law enforcement, we're not mechanics. So we had to go out there and try to keep those things running and running until hurricane season starts. And then once it goes down, it's our responsibility, our budget, to pay to get those things going again. And then most times in Harris County, it's offset to someone else to work on those big, large trucks. So we were able to get our trucks going. In some areas, we can make it with the trucks. And in some areas, we had one truck to go down because you can't see the road, and one of the guys drove into a ditch or something.
Wow.
Well, now that's another good point. Mark, we're going to be ready for that that Precinct 7 clip that we have. And as soon as you get it up, why don't you just go ahead on and just play it? But we keep talking about these high water trucks. I want to give the audience a chance to see what your vehicles look like. We got a pretty good shot of the boat, but that's that airboat, and it was deflated.
Right. Because it was so old, we took it down, and those folks at the outdoor shop, I can't think of the name right now, Bass Pro Shop.
Uh-huh.
They were very, very helpful. Matter of fact, they donated us a boat. You probably saw a smaller boat. The people from Bass Pro Shop actually donated that bus to us when the storm first started.
Well, I since you said that, I want to make sure that I say from the community side, we really appreciate you and the officers and Constable Walker for doing what she does all the time with her limited resources.
Right.
So we want to thank the constable from Precinct 7 for helping the community on a regular and daily basis over and beyond with limited resources. Do you see us having a meeting with Commissioner Ellis?
Well, I would think he'd meet with us. I mean, he's always been very, very agreeable to meet and to talk about issues that we may have. I know that the citizens need to be aware of what you said earlier. We can have these high water vehicles, we can have boats, but unless they're maintained at the time, right prior to the flood, they have to be all maintained so that they'll start and they'll work. Right. And then we have to fix them afterward because they're going to get exposed to all that water. So
well, why can't this part of this $102 million be given to them for maintenance for the next 5 years? I mean, that's dealing with right now, and it's dealing with mitigation. It's in the cycle. So
Charles, it makes too much sense.
Yes, certainly, and
I think it just makes too much sense.
Walker, she spends a lot of money on those trucks. I mean, those trucks in the military may be 20, 25 years old. Right. And, you got tires, you got batteries, you got the fluid inside has to be drained. You got, it was so many issues that came up as far as the braking mechanisms, the air brakes. I mean, a lot of that stuff, we dealing with 3 months, maybe 2 months of hurricane season out of the year. Those other months, those trucks are sitting in the bullpen, we call it. Right. just sitting there, and we'd go out there every month and start them up. As the trucks deteriorate, things happen.
Correct.
And then we're a month away. We try to prepare 2 months before the hurricane season, and we had to put those trucks in the shop, and then it takes a hit on our budget big time.
Because you're not using them every day.
We're not using them.
These are not vehicles.
Yeah.
We may not even use them for a year or two.
Yeah.
It could happen.
Yeah.
So then we've got this problem with, getting them working, getting them because you don't want to put a faulty vehicle out there on the road to try to save somebody's life.
Oh, no.
And get stuck.
And get stuck, or either if you lose. Imagine we putting children, seniors,
Oh, yeah.
infants, babies, everybody's on the back of these trucks.
Just think if that would have went off in the ditch.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Just think about the tragedy there. That could have
You
happened.
ready, Mark?
I've been showing it, so.
Oh, okay. So do you have Lieutenant Sharma's conversation with us?
I do.
Okay, let's go to Lieutenant Sharma from Precinct 7. Now that's the command center, right?
Yes. That's our command trailer that we
This
take to
area
most
in
scenes.
the back that you're seeing right now is primarily vehicles and equipment that has been used in emergency situations. The most recent being the storm Harvey. This is a high water rescue vehicle that was utilized out there in the floodwaters. As you can see, it's pretty high off the ground. It's a military grade truck, and it does have the canvas top.
Have you ever had a full load where over capacity when you picked up people?
Oh, absolutely. We've had to make numerous trips, taking folks from high water, flooded areas, for whether it be their homes, going door to door with rescue boats, and we had to count on the civilians, some of the folks that own these boats, to come out and assist so that they could operate the boat. We would go ahead into various locations or homes and get these folks, whether they were young or elderly, and we had teams of officers or deputies along with supervisors that were out there. We even had our captain.
Once you pick them up and load them in, do you have a standard staging site that
Yes.
you drop off?
Yes, we had certain staging sites that we utilized or designated, and so that would be it'd be a safe point. And so we would go ahead and get the citizens once they were loaded up, or the children, the elderly, etc., and get them to that staging point. And from that staging point, then they would be taken to the various shelters that were open.
Now, he made me think of this particular point. Everybody has given Houston people, the residents, if people were visiting, they pitched in. People came from out of town. That was the best of humanity that always has presented itself in these kind of situations. So that was real good. But what kind of pricked my interest is how the government and then the media start playing up more on what the people did as though it was unusual. That's not unusual. It's unusual when the city government doesn't keep a good relationship with people that are here all the time to capitalize, so to speak, on that humanity. Let's train it. They came out with this program with Citizens Corps that was supposed to do it. CERT was supposed to do it. Didn't get to the black community, okay? Then they came out with this, now that was federal to county. Then they came out with this program called Whole Community. That was another attempt to draw the people in the community in. So in this town, I know that from Allison to now, and you saw these articles, Houston is not ready for another disaster or flood. And right now, we're still not ready. So do you see it ever being addressed in a comprehensive way where the government is doing its part and it's including the citizens to do what they can do? Because it was that Ike hurricane, it was so many trees down, people couldn't get out of their neighborhood and people couldn't get in. And it was nothing there where no one organized, okay, well, all the chainsaws, okay? But naturally, people with the chainsaws start going cutting trees. People start moving trees. Well, there is a way to kind of assist in that as far as to making things run smoother and faster. They did that with service stations, grocery stores. I think it was Ike. Some kind of way at Good Hope, they got a generator.
Well, during nighttime, Third Ward, has these large pine trees.
Correct.
And a lot of those pine trees fell.
Correct.
Because the age, the height, and the winds from the storm. And I recall we had a crew of not only Precinct 7 constable deputies, but HPD officers from the Southeast Station. We were out riding around on one of those high water trucks, actually cutting trees and taking the trucks with chains and moving them out the street and all that kind of stuff. And I just remember when it came up, we talked about it. I remember
Right.
Judge Al Bennett jumped on the truck with us or jumped on his yard because his street was blocked off and started taking the chainsaw and helping us cut the tree.
Right.
But you're right, it has to be some type of city, if not county, coordination
It's got to be.
to survive these events. Not only survive, but clear the way to mediate.
We could make it a smoother operation or a smoother transition from point A to point B. Pastor Cofield, some kind of way, we got that, he got it, or we got it, I don't remember, but it was sitting on his parking lot. He had people in there, okay, in his church, but didn't have no power. I had met with, what's his name, Robert Eccles, when he was county judge. They should have staging sites with certain churches where the generator is there in case, because FEMA had grants that you could apply for. And that could have been a joint venture with the constables, the county, and the church, and made sure that the church was available. When again, with Ike, Pastor Nash and Congressman Green and I rode around till like 11:45. We rode through the neighborhood. There were 5 churches open, and they weren't on anybody's list. And I was trying to figure out why it's liability. It was almost like when I talked to the county, we don't want to do that.
Well, Mr. Councilman Kubash, that's I'm just a soldier. Those are the policymakers.
Right.
So if between the city council and the commissioners court, which govern our county judge, or commissioners, maybe we can just make a plan that can include Harris County, the cities in Harris County, and come up with some kind of coordinated effort to do that. I know most constables, most commissioner precincts are in the city and also include the incorporated areas of the county. So if we can probably coordinate some type of teams to do that. Like our stuff was at spur of the moment. We see officers working we help each other.
Right.
We see like we saw Southeast cutting trees down. Hey, we got some equipment. Let's move these trees with our equipment. So at that point, we made an effort to coordinate between us and them. Hey, we got the trucks, y'all got the saws, we got the chains. Let's move this stuff out the way.
Now, look, the city of Houston is part of the National Preparedness Plan. That is National Preparedness Goal 32 core capabilities. Every city in America got this. One of them, I'm gonna just read, long-term vulnerability reduction. That's what we talking about. Right. Long-term vulnerability reduction. Here's another one, community resilience. It's under the mitigation column. Recovery is housing, infrastructure systems, not just brick and mortar. This is an infrastructure system right here, but it's social infrastructure. So they don't count us as a resource or a tool, but the city and the county, when they turn in certain reports, they count it, but it's not actually functional. So here we are, they know this. They get the same information that I get. So where's the community resilience? Where's the long-term vulnerability plan? And I've been saying this for 14, 15, since 2003 when they came out with it, when the federal government came out with it. So we do need the professional and the policymaker and the community or the practitioners. We need to call a meeting.
Well, and I agree with that. The Houston-Galveston Area Council, I think there's 7 counties that are involved in that. And I've been on that board when Mayor Parker was here. And floodwater doesn't know any districts or any boundaries as far as, we can't go over there because that's Harris County or that's Fort Bend County. Mm-hmm. That water knows no limit. Just like you may not realize it, but the homes that flooded in Kingwood flooded because they opened the dams in Conroe and destroyed that whole area. They could have let that water out sooner, knowing we were going to have a high rainfall, but they're concerned about all of their sporting and their boats and all that. They didn't want to drain that thing down a couple of feet, but they should have. But when hurricane season, we need to mitigate and take out the water out of these reservoirs and drop them down, preparing ourselves. If we had had because all we have is 18 inches, they say, and then we got to let the water out. But if they'd have drained it down, yeah, we'd still had plenty of water for drinking water and all that.
And you're talking about from 2001 to 2014, you mean that nobody could scientifically figure that out?
Well, Charles, not only that, there was I think a 6-person board that made the decision to let that water out to flood Kingwood. There was no plan to notify those people in advance, and none of the people on that board lived downstream. Think about it.
Now, watch this. The city of Houston, school districts, hospitals, universities, all are part of this national plan that we get training on. There's a thing in here that's called corrective action plans, Mm-hmm. What I would do is call Skorimsky down and look at his report. He got a report out that came out not too long ago from 2016 to 2020. He got some gaps in there. You need to review that plan, or we need to review it, and I go over some things with you here it is right here. He has this. Where is the city's plan? They don't have it. And he's been in that spot a long time.
Well, one thing we did in our office, one of the captains, Captain Holland Jones, we did an after-action report. And it detailed all the things that we failed, all things that we need to improve on, and all the things that we did right. And I don't know if the city does it.
Yeah, they do.
Report.
They do. Because the corrective action plan and the after action plan, they're all in that same cycle of fixing it, whatever was broke. Then they got what they call the hot wash. All of those 3 different stages is for them to improve the plan, and they have to resubmit it every 2 years or every 3 years. So, you know, I just don't see us keep making the same. Now, Scripps is a good guy. I've been knowing him for 25 years. When he was working with us in Sunnyside when crack cocaine hit in 85, 86, 87. So, I mean, he's a good guy, but the point now is that he needs to reach out. The mayor needs to reach out. And I just don't, I don't see, and I'm saying this because I done met with the mayor. I done met with them to talk about just what we talking about right now, before it happened. So, hey, I mean, you know, I'm not no prophet. I ain't claiming to be.
Well, remember this. We've had a number of floods. A couple of them you didn't mention was the Memorial Day flood and the Tax Day flood,
Right.
where you were talking about hurricanes. But think about the people that live in Meyerland right now.
3 years.
They can't rebuild because if they had 3 floods, they're not going to let them rebuild. And remember this. These people are going to have to pay taxes on the property based on the pre-Harvey hurricane flood, because the city has never taken the action to reappraise the properties. I've talked about it, I've asked to do it, and it would give people relief, but we're gonna make them pay what the cost of that house was prior to the flood damage.
That's robbery.
Say it louder.
That's organized robbery. Give me some handcuffs, Constable.
Each taxing authority has to call for a reappraisal. So it would have to be Houston, it would have to be HISD, it would have to be, any of the ISDs would have to do it. It would also have to be Harris County.
Right. But
They don't want to do it. Why? We don't want the cost of having to do this. Listen, it's the right thing to do. People are going to have to pay elevated rates on houses that are flooded and damaged that they may never live in again. This is not right. It's egregious.
And I ride through those areas, a lot of people are not in their homes. They're still not in there.
I know they're living
Right now.
They're living
in hotels.
Hotels. They're living in hotels, and I mean,
You can go on my Facebook and look at me over at Applebee's with people that were living in the hotel, came over there to eat, and I was in there with them talking to them. And of course, they kind of stir me up when I talk about that $102 million, and they haven't gotten any of it.
Jim Blackburn said this. He said that the discussion about flooding is not in the public domain. And he's going all around trying to explain what's going on. They have a meeting, today is the 6th?
Yes.
They have a meeting tonight, big meeting tonight. And he and I and this other guy, Bill King, did a symposium at TSU in 2010, talking about this very thing right now. So there is really no excuse.
The reason why it's not in the public domain, it just doesn't seem to be attractive to people to have a bond issue for flooding. It just doesn't seem to be attractive unless you flooded. Well, I didn't flood, I don't want to vote for it. But yet we had $495 million in bonds that we passed just a month ago, and none of it is going to go for mitigating of flooding. None of it, Charles.
And is it anything that we can do about it?
It's already passed. The voters passed it.
I mean, with the money, now that it's passed.
No, it's passed. It's already designated for what it's going to go to.
But that's what they said about the bond money with the schools, with HISD, the rainy, Rebuild Houston money, and...
I hear you.
Okay.
well, whatever happened is not getting to the people.
It's not.
It's not getting to the people. And like I say, we have, from Ike, we have, I recall a senior in our community that's from Ike, her roof is still blue tarped. And I know after Harvey, her house is flooded from the rain coming inside her house.
Well, even these senior citizens' place, Tropical Storm Allison was my first storm. And Sandra Hines and I, you know the church, the block on Cullen,
Right,
way down
block
Cullen?
on Cullen and Oral.
That is where that was our site. FEMA and everybody came out. Sandra was handling all the clothes, and we were really, and the Anna Dupree, the lights was out. We helping the seniors come down 3 flights of stairs in the dark.
Right.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
I mean, that was a heck of a thing right there. Then it was, and you know, it was for a while. And we were taking water back. When you actually do those kinds of events and not looking for the camera, I mean, you can't help people like that and forget that. It was a need. Those people were scared. They were in the dark. They were displaced. And from that time to this, it can still happen just the way it happened then, right now. So, and there is legislation or rules that are in place for senior citizen facility, but why isn't the city or the county taking an assessment and saying, okay, so much for senior citizen facility, okay? In the vulnerable populated area first. You know that thing they had in the city called, they were gonna do something worse first? That was the streets, wasn't it?
Yeah, the worst first. Yeah.
Okay, that's a good.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
It's a good soundbite.
So, but then, if we did it like that, because if you look at the configuration of Houston and deal with the loop 610, and then do the Beltway, and then do 99, the most vulnerable people are in that loop area.
Right.
Then the second stage of vulnerable people are in that loop area. Weren't you on city council when the mayor pushed that urban footprint out to the Beltway?
Yes.
Chapter 42?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I came in right after that.
You came in right
after that, yeah.
Because
that was on her first term.
Right, okay. Well, to me, that has to do with that area of vulnerability because of population growth just expanded a little further out, but it also made them qualify for some other gratuities. Man, and I hope the audience don't look at us as cynical, but it has to do with money.
Right.
And we have to watch the dollars. And that's part of what's not happening with our public dollars, is holding the ones that are making the decisions. They don't have to worry about 5,000 of us showing up to say, hey, or getting 5,000 phone calls, emails. So that's what part of what we're going to be trying to do in the community to get this.
Charles, there's still $69 million in the hands of the Greater Houston Community Foundation, and I challenge anyone to try to figure out how to get that money. They're only going to give it to nonprofits, and then you got to go on 211, they say, to get an application for the nonprofits. So, and they
nonprofits are not the only ones that can receive that money.
But that's what they're doing. They're giving it just to nonprofits. Charles, they're spreading it out among so many nonprofits, I won't be able to track it all because there's so many of them. I'm not upset with the nonprofits. I think that's great if you got a nonprofit and you're doing good. But the money for Ike was given by people who saw.
To give to the people.
That's it. And it should have went there within 2 or 3 weeks. That money should have all been dispersed.
But I just got a question for you, Councilman Kubash. Who in the nonprofit makes a determination on where the money goes? Okay, the money's given to the nonprofit, as you stated. Who makes in the nonprofit makes a determination on?
I haven't got to that point yet. I don't know.
And the ones they're giving it to.
That's what I'm saying. I can't follow it.
The ones they're giving it to are outside of the service needs sector area. That's the worst.
So how do they determine in the nonprofit who gets the money? Whether do Miss Johnny Mae Holmes and Sunnyside get $1,000? Do Mr. Smith?
From what I understand,
South
they're not giving them cash. They're rendering services. They're giving them vouchers or something. Look, they're so concerned about the greedy getting the money. I had to remind them, Jesus had 12 disciples, and one of them was a devil. You know, there's always going to be the needy, the greedy among the needy. We can't stop helping the needy people because we're concerned about the greedy. We have to still help everybody. Yes, there's going to be people that's going to take advantage of the system, but you still want to get the money out to help the people that are in need.
But I'm just thinking people in the African American community Do they know how to contact these nonprofits?
I don't think they do, and especially the people that have the greatest need.
And those same nonprofits been around before the storm, and they weren't reaching out to the people. So what makes you think that they're gonna reach out now that they got money?
I mean, you got the Shape Center, you got people at the Shape Center and stuff like that.
Give the Lord some money. Give Reverend Ray some money.
You got Reverend Ray in Third Ward. You got the Lord in Third Ward.
Yeah, Charity Productions. We've been doing it.
I mean, we turn to these people. The seniors are turning to these people, or they know that can they come to these people for help?
I've asked people like Pastor Nash that you mentioned earlier. You know, he's a good friend of mine. I've been out to his church. His church is set up in the you know, in the Keys Center to give out food and give out stuff. And I asked him, how much money did you get? How much money did you get? None.
Oh, and let me. You made me think of this. Somebody asked me this, and it just came to me one day. You know that verse in wherever it's in the Bible. I'll
help you.
You help me out then. It says that the poor will be with us always.
Jesus said, "The poor you shall have with you always."
But let me tell you about. Let me give you my response to that. He didn't say what percentage. See, because when it's used as a blanket excuse or disclaimer.
Yes, it is.
But we haven't measured what is the percentage that we can reduce it, and that's the goal. So if it's 40% now, the maximum we're going to be able to reduce it is to say it's going to always be 15%. See, we haven't worked on it mathematically like that.
Right. I agree.
See, so that's true. The poor will be with us for always, but it don't say it has to be uncalculable.
Right.
Well, I just think there should be some kind of mechanism, some kind of something in place to make sure.
We've been around since 1984. We've been doing the hurricane stuff since 1999. They know us. You know, the city comes out, the health department, the fire department. They didn't come to us with no money. I'm a vendor with the city. I've done the police training, the contracts with training for the health department, the mayor's office, all of them. But so if they not come looking for me, you think they're gonna be looking for somebody else? No. Well, we're gonna have to wrap up now. It was an interesting discussion. Give us a closing comment in about 30 seconds, and council member give us a closing comments, and we're gonna see you next time, but give us a closing comment.
Well, my only comment is that we, all this money floating around everywhere, that some of it should be peeled out for law enforcement as far as keeping our equipment going.
Yes.
And not so much a budgetary issue for us, but an issue that they can, put in, I don't know, some
help maintain the equipment.
Maintain these equipment through not only Precinct 7, but all the other precincts who have those hot water vehicles.
I want to say what a joy it has been to be here with you, Smokey, and Captain, and to be here with you, Charles. And I'm not going to stop using my seat that the people gave me to speak up about the injustices in government.
We'll see you next time. This is Community Views and Solutions. I'm Charles X. White, your host, and we appreciate your tuning in. We'll see you next time. Community Views and Solutions.